Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to be talking about how civilians can get started with owning their own MANET radios. Let's jump into it. Now, for some reason, these radios have a lot of mysticism surrounding them. I'm not sure if that's just due to the way people talk about them in culture, or if it's because of a lot of the people that are using it both operationally and some of the influencers that have access to them as well. When it comes to owning a MANET radio, there's really nothing mystical about them to me. They're no different than owning something like a fire extinguisher, a CCW, a generator, an IFAC. To me, this is just another tool in the toolbox of being a responsible American. And so when we look at videos online about these, generally they're either spoken with a lot of allure, or they're just mentioned tangentially in some video that's shilling for Beartooth. So we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna get into some of the technologies that exist out there and what they are. And we're gonna explain how this kind of takes the best of 3 different technologies and puts them all together and adds some additional capability. Now, there's a few legal disclaimers I do have to give. First of all, do not break the law. You can get yourself into a lot of trouble when it comes to operating in the RF space, so always consult with a lawyer and check with your local laws. Secondly, I actually do a lot of work with different companies inside of the radio space. So companies like Mojave Repeater, Silvus Technologies, Proto Cable, I do work with them, but I'm just here representing myself and my own opinions. These are not to be conflated with any of the views of any of the other companies that I do work with. Thirdly, I'm not going to talk about certain aspects of these radios because of some legal considerations that I have, especially when it comes to things like ITAR. They're just flat out things I can't discuss on an open platform like YouTube, and so they won't be covered in this video. What is a MANET radio? We're gonna start by kind of contextualizing and framing the discussion around 3 different pieces of technology that you may or may not be familiar with, right? So just starting off here in the middle, I have a Ubiquiti AirMax Prism. Now what this is it's a radio, and it is a radio that is capable of transmitting high amounts of data over long distances. You would power it using a PoE injector, and then you would interface with it using Ethernet, and with another one of these, you could send data like video, ATAC data, really just anything you want. You could send the entire internet over this. The downside of something like this is it's generally designed to be landlocked, right? A semi-permanent installation. And the other downside is that there's really no way to power it on the go, and there's no way to set this up to be self-configuring, right? One of these is going to be the master node and kind of decide and dictate the roles that the other nodes inside of its network play. So those are the benefits and the drawbacks of something like the AirMax Prism. Then we get into something like the, this is a LilyGo T-Beam, but this is based around the Meshtastic mesh infrastructure. Meshtastic devices are highly mobile and agile, but they offer extremely low data rates, low durability, and inconsistent quality control. So there is a self-forming, self-healing mesh network that goes on here, and there's a degree of team situational awareness, right? This one happens to have a little GPS on it. Inside of the app, I could see where other nodes as part of my team are, but that's about it. And I've generally found these to be kind of the jankiest of the options out there. But it is also simultaneously the device people see most often trying to fit by DIY or at-home manufacturing, trying to fit inside of the MANET space. And I'm sorry to break it to you guys, but it just falls short because of the disadvantages that I've talked about. Real quick, pause. This is where I would put other products like Beartooth and some of these Wi-Fi Halo DIY projects that have been going around really recently. They are nowhere near as durable or even really waterproof as a true MANET radio. And they're not going to have the PTT integration for your comms headsets. And if they're honest with you in their advertising, which Beartooth almost never is, they're going to tell you that the data throughput isn't anywhere close in the real world to what these are capable of in the 100 megabits per second range. Those are typically going to be about 1 to 2 megabits per second on the absolute highest end with Wi-Fi Halo, and they just really go down from there. So there you go. And then we have our digital LMRs, right? Our land mobile radios. The benefits of something like this is that this is designed to be worn by a human, and it's designed to be used in very rugged environments, right? I can plug my tactical headset into this U94 PTT from Disco 32. This has encryption on it, and I'm able to talk and interoperate with my team in a mobile environment. The downside to this is that I am limited to simplex, right? There's no mesh, there's no self-configuring network, there's no data beyond just basic text and some other low-level data applications that exist out there. So This is kind of cool. This is actually, when it comes to like team-based comms, if it's not MANET, this is what I'm gonna default to, right? I'm gonna integrate, you know, maybe I would integrate something like the Ubiquiti AirMax if I was doing some sort of like data for semi-permanent or at the halt type of stuff. But for the most part, when it's team-based stuff, I would default to, you know, this DMR Hytera here. Right, so now that we've talked about 3 different aspects of technologies, let's talk about how these radios actually take all of that functionality, the best parts of those functionality, eliminates their downsides, and why they cost so much, right? So these radios are capable of a full TCP/IP data stack, and they're able to move large amounts of data over extended distances. Just like the AirMax, like the Meshtastic, they form a self-forming, self-healing, self-managing network, right? So as they move around and connect and disconnect from each other, they're going to, you know, augment their topology, and they're going to know where the neighboring nodes are. There's no configuration needed from that. And these are capable of voice. We're going to talk about the functionality for that. These are capable of voice. They're encrypted, and they are designed for rugged use and to be like man-worn on your kit, right? They can fit into some other roles, but that's generally what we're gonna see people trying to emulate on the civilian side, is that dismounted application. These radios also take some additional functionality and put them on top of those feature sets. So in the case of Silvus Technologies, they have, you know, their own custom advanced waveform that they're able to do a lot more on the RF side of things. Just as an example, on the MPU5 side of things, they might have extra peripherals like, you know, GPS, video encoder, you know, onboard EUD. Those are just some dirty dish examples of some other ways that these manufacturers go well above and beyond that optimized technology that goes into the 3 other categories I already talked about. While we're on the subject of durability, these radios are built like a tank, right? There is certain standards that exist in the DoD world, which is the primary target customer for these units, and that means that they're going to have to be built to an extremely hard standard. I could take this and I could throw it across my room. You know, I could run this over with my truck, and they'd be totally fine. There's also a lot of these different like I/O aspects of them that have to meet those military standards, right? So all in all, when I hear people talk about the price of these, you got to consider all the functionality you get into it, right? You get 3 amazing functionality sets from different technologies all in one, and you get them in an extremely durable package. So with that being said, the 2 models we're going to talk about today are the Silvus StreamCaster and the MPU5. Now, like I said in my disclaimers, I've done work with Silvus and I had access to loaner equipment, but for this project, I wanted to run an experiment. So I sourced all of my own units, I paid for them out of pocket, and I bought them from public websites. So you're seeing this as close to a regular person's perspective as possible in terms of sourcing these on the secondhand market. The MPU5. It's no secret that I prefer the StreamCaster, and to be perfectly honest, I actually debated leaving the MPU5 out entirely due to both my opinions of them and zero experience with sourcing them on the secondhand market. However, this is a game that's all about what's available. A lot of the experiences that I had with sourcing the Silvus StreamCasters are going to translate with sourcing on the MPU5 side. So it would have been really irresponsible of me to leave these out. So that's just a little bit of context there. So there's 2 main routes you can go when it comes to acquiring the MANET radios. First and foremost, you can just buy them from the manufacturer. So this is something that's not really well known by people, but because of the frequency spaces and the software agility that exists within these devices, you can own them and purchase them directly from the company, right? People do it all the time, actually. There are companies that are in broadcasting, energy, robotics. They purchase these units and they use them in their day-to-day life, right? They're not in a mil-LE capacity and they're still using them. Now, there is a caveat there, which is that although you're going to have the most flexibility in the quantity and feature sets you're going to be able to acquire, you are going to pay full price. And as we already discussed, there's a reason these are very, very expensive units. So in terms of legality, I know for a fact that Silvus Technologies offers ISM Part 15 compliant variants of the StreamCaster, and that's going to be the easy button, right? The most easy way to get started with these. Like I said, you'll pay full price, but you can just buy them. And I know also that there's some publications on the MPU5 being available with some ISM variants. There was a lot less information about that, so I can't really validate those claims. There were some older articles, so I'm not sure on the availability of that. My friend Alex with Mojave Repeater is much more knowledgeable about sourcing these brand new. So if that's the route you guys want to go and you're interested in just, paying the full price and getting as many as you want, go check with him. He's going to be a great guy to help you guys out with that. But that is probably not why you're watching this video. You're probably watching because you want to know how I did it by going on the used market. So let's talk about that. So this is one of the Silvus StreamCasters that I purchased secondhand for myself with my own money. And the safest way to do that is by actually buying through government surplus auctions. Now, when you buy through a government surplus auction, the gear has gone through an official demilitarization process, so it's legally cleared for civilian ownership. Because these went through the legal demil process, there's almost no way that these are stolen military equipment, and it ensures that there's nothing on here that's an automatic go to jail card if I'm caught with it. Now, with that said, surplus lots will rarely come with any type of accessories or supporting hardware. The other thing that you'll see is you'll see a lot of these units pop up on eBay as well. Now, you have to be very careful when shopping on eBay. It can be the best value option, or it can be a paperweight or a scam. So the trick is to engage with the seller. Ask exactly what's included, what firmware version it's running, whether it powers on, if original accessories are included. Ask as many questions as possible because you're able to do that through the messaging aspect of eBay. Those questions will actually help you assess how the gear was treated, confirm that it was sourced legitimately, and sometimes give you leverage for a better deal. Now, the most complete kits that I've ever seen, things like PTTs, additional cabling, batteries, you can often get the best value on the eBay side of things, even if the radio itself isn't really priced the lowest like it would be on the Gov Surplus side of things. Now, in the very small number of StreamCasters I sourced from eBay, the sellers actually didn't know that the gear that they had was to support the radio, some stuff that they had also available for them to sell. And so I was able to negotiate with them, explain to them that, hey, that's some supporting equipment that can go along with these radios, and negotiate for a better deal to get those included peripherals. So again, if it's on eBay, just engage with the sellers and ask as many questions as possible. Now, when you are buying these outside of that demil process, there's some big red flags that you're gonna wanna look for. So things like a missing serial number or data plate that's been scratched off or it's obscured in some way, or if people can't explain how these units that they're selling were sourced. Now, that's generally gonna be a pretty good indicator that they're non-legitimate. And unlike something like a PEC 15, or some old government surplus that is no longer in use and it got sold on the secondhand market, there's a massive, massive risk for getting in trouble with purchasing missing military equipment. Do not do that, guys. I promise you, the juice is not worth the squeeze. You can get yourself into some pretty serious trouble if you do that. So for the love of God, please don't break the law. The last thing to look for in terms of a red flag is any type of missing photos from the listing or things that were described as untested or for parts only. So I'm actually going to talk about the only nightmare experience I actually had with this entire process. So one surplus lot that I did purchase actually did not have all the photos of all of the units. And so there was a damaged unit in there that wasn't disclosed in the photos and also was deliberately omitted in the description. And it was fairly obvious. There was some sort of electrical short that had taken place down here at the battery connector port. Now, because I had proof that it was demilled, I was able to work with Silvus customer service. If it hadn't been demilled, I could have been in serious legal trouble and risked being unable to send it in for repair. Now, on that note, these are surplus for a reason. The original agency has decided that they're beyond the lifespan for reasonable field use. And this will probably show in the form of some heavy signs of wear. This one's actually in really good condition for having being sourced by a surplus. Let me see if I have one. Here's a great example. All right, so this one is a little bit more scuffed up. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but it's got nicks and dings all over it. But anyway, a unit has decided, right, these are no longer fit for field use. And so that will mean that they show some signs of wear, and you're probably on the hook for any types of repairs that take place because these will likely have long been past their warranty time frame on them. This is why staying above board is so important. If you need to service a unit and you would like to send it in for any type of repair that might need to take place, if they were missing from some unit, these manufacturers are going to have record of that. They're gonna have record of who it was sold to, and if you can't provide proof that it has gone through the legal demil process, they're probably not gonna service it for you, and frankly, I don't blame them. So because these are capable of that really high data throughput rate that I talked about, these get flexed into a lot of different roles on the mil-LE side of things, and again, even in some of the industrial aspects of them as well. But the configuration that most people are probably gonna want to emulate is gonna look something like this. this. This is what we would call a dismount configuration. So it is being battery powered, it's man wearable, it's on my kit. These antennas are, you know, sizable enough to where they're not gonna get in my way when they're being worn. And we're gonna incorporate something like, you know, voice comms with this PTT that would interface with my tactical headset, right, with my ops core amps here, just as an example. So that was one aspect. And then also they're gonna be interfacing with what we call an EUD, an end user device, which really all that means is it's some sort of Android device that is typically running ATAC or some sort of software that's designed for the exchange of information, things like video feeds, COT, cursor on target data inside of ATAC, drone feeds, just as some examples. This is generally what you're going to see. And so what we're gonna do in this section is we're gonna talk about some of the considerations that go into that. Now, with the MPU5, this is where you can hit the wall the fastest. If you actually don't have this is their dual PTT that actually interfaces right here on the side. You're essentially kind of dead in the water for doing any type of dismounted application. And the reason for that is that Persistent Systems takes a very walled garden approach with their accessory ecosystem, meaning there's really no place that you can buy these accessories over the counter. Me from the future again, I did actually, in the interest of honesty, send an email to Persistent Systems to inquire about purchasing one of the dual PTTs. Now, somebody replied to me, said someone with their sales team would get with me and get me a quote for that PTT, but no one ever followed up. So I guess you should be able to buy one, and the person just didn't follow up. As of right now, I have not heard back. If that changes, I'll put a annotation in the description, but I doubt it. The only sort of over-the-counter accessory I've ever seen people be able to buy is an EUD cable, right? So it would interface with a end user device. That third-party cable would be from Freedom Atlantic and is the only place that I've ever seen people be able to source any type of peripherals for Persistent Systems. And just so you know, you can't just go to Freedom Atlantic and buy it, right? You have to request a quote. So for that reason, I really wanted to warn you guys about, if you're gonna go the MPU5 route, you have to start with bare minimum all of this here, right? You have to, in fact, you know, we'll get a little bit more creative with it. Even this is a survivable configuration, right? You could make this work, and we'll talk about that in the accessories portion of this video when we get into how I set up all of my StreamCasters. But this you could survive because you could source all of these components, right, or equivalent components over the counter, right? You don't have to know anybody or have access to some sort of like secret surplus stockpile. But if you are missing this, because this is essentially like, this is a hub, right? This is a hub that facilitates certain controls over the MPU5, and it's also where you interface your end user device and where you would plug your tactical headset in. Let me grab that as an, right? So you could plug your tactical headset into this little lead here. This is the 174 connector. Now, if you use OpsCore amps, this is survivable because I know for a fact that OpsCore sells a down lead that connects right into the amps and goes into the dual PTT. But again, you're gonna spend some money to accomplish that. Now, this is why it's critical when shopping for an MPU5 to make sure that the PTT and cable situation is completely sorted out before you spend the money on the radio itself. Now, the good news is that it's usually sold as more of a kit altogether when the seller is educated. Now, more often than not, you'll find them bundled with the dual PTT and those cables, but just to be clear, always ask questions and avoid listings like this and look at listings like this, right? So you want to generally avoid any situation where the dual PTT isn't included. The one accessory that is very hit or miss, and that's okay, and we'll explain why, is the RDC, right? This is what Persistent Systems calls the ruggedized display and controller. And despite the fact that it looks like an EUD, it's actually just a touchscreen and some peripherals on it that control the onboard Android device that's within the MPU5. So if you don't get this, that actually is okay. It might save you a lot of money. I've even heard of people who use these devices professionally that really don't care for the RDC just due to its size and weight. And you know, if a seller is selling with this, they're probably gonna ask a substantially higher cost. So if you don't get the RDC, that's totally fine because like I said, you can get an EUD cable from Freedom Atlantic and you could use your own end user device like my buddy has set up here. So what does that look like instead of, here, let me just show you what it looks like with the RDC. So with the RDC, it is just gonna interface right there inside that little USB. Like I said, this is pretty much like this is almost like a USB hub with some additional functionality on it. In fact, I think it is a USB hub. Or, right, you don't have to use the RDC. This would be controlling the Android device that's inside the MPU5. You could go this route, get an EUD cable, and it's going to essentially serve the same purpose. You're using this Android device instead of the one that is inside of the MPU5. There's some software that allows them to interface. I'm not gonna get into that in this video, but this is totally doable, right? You're totally fine if you don't get the RDC. In fact, you might save a lot of money if you don't get the RDC. Now, with the Silvus StreamCaster, the situation's actually a lot easier. Now, notwithstanding the excellent EW profile that Silvus offers to the mil-LE side, the biggest reason that I actually chose to go with this platform for my personal gear is the massive modularity. Now, StreamCasters use standard military connectors and an open enough ecosystem that you can source accessories from multiple vendors without jumping through hoops. Now, for a civilian dismount kit, or leveraging all the agility these radios can offer, that kind of flexibility is huge, and that's what was important to me. We'll get into the specific accessories I like in a minute, but let's first talk about what to do when you get this radio in. We are going to, pretend as if we just got these radios in, one or the other used, and we're gonna give them a new lease on life. We're gonna take good care of them, kind of, welcome them to the nursing home. So we're gonna start off with the MPU5 just as an example, mainly so that way I can get my buddy back his MPU5 in better condition than I got it. The starting point is my favorite product, my favorite cleaning product in the whole world is a Clorox wipe. So, these radios, they'll show some serious signs of use. This is a great example because my buddy does use this for work. But just take a Clorox wipe and just kind of wipe it down. I generally, especially on like an MPU5, I would say avoid that IO connector. Supposedly they're fine, but I'm gonna avoid them just to be on the safe side. So just wiping them down with a Clorox wipe. And the thing you'll notice, especially on these top side of both these radios, there's a lot of like little nooks and crannies inside of there. So you're gonna want some sort of like brush or way to just get in here and clean it all off. If you do a lot of cleaning with guns, this should seem pretty familiar to you. There's a lot of metallic substances in here. I think I know why, but we'll get into that. So we're just cleaning these off, right? We're doing our best, and then after I've cleaned off in there, I can come in here with a Clorox wipe. Again, avoid this IO as much as possible. On the antenna ports, you actually can wipe them off with a Clorox wipe, and we'll talk about why here in a second. Sorry guys, my camera stopped recording, my overhead one, so that's okay because that means I can just keep going. This is my channel. We'll have the blunder in it. That's totally fine. I was cleaning the top side of the antenna ports, and what I did was after I actually, had gotten them all cleaned off, what I did was I took some dielectric grease and I applied a tiny amount to the threads. And what that does is that protects against any type of corrosion or galling. Now, these antenna posts are connected to an internal board inside of the radio, and that's gonna be very expensive to replace. So I would take very good care of your antenna posts, and don't over tighten these TNC connectors either. Lastly, on the power side of things, what we're gonna do is we're going to take a screwdriver. We're gonna make sure that this little, this twist lock component is seated properly. Check to make sure these pogo pins are in good shape. That's actually one of the most common failure points on these radios. And then likewise on the blades of the radio themselves, on the blades of the batteries themselves, gonna seat them. And then this little O-ring here, this, if you need to replace it because it's missing or cracked, the number 35 O-ring from Lowe's fits in here perfectly. That's the route I would go. It's what I've been using. They seem to do just fine. But the reason we seat those is that an improper seating and these having intermittent connection is probably one of the most common failure points. You'll have just random reboots with your radio. So want to avoid that. I'll just show you guys here on the 4400 a couple things. So inside, what you'll notice, especially on these the StreamCasters, is they have very deep heat sinks. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take my favorite cleaning product again. We're gonna use a credit card. This isn't a credit card, this is a spudger, but I'm not gonna show my credit card on YouTube. And what we're gonna do is, in these deep heat sinks, we're just gonna get down in between with the Clorox wipe. In fact, if you want a real tight fit, you can double the Clorox wipe over itself. And what we're doing when we do this is we're just getting all that dust and nastiness and debris out from the heatsink fins. Because on the 4400, they actually terminate at a perpendicular angle right here with this little portion of it. This is very important. If you've been buying your MANET radios on credit card, this motion should feel pretty familiar for you. And let's be honest, you know, your maxed out credit card, it's not good for much else, so you might as well use it as a cleaning supply for your new toys. Right, so there you go. You can see I've got some gunk out of the fins. Take the Clorox wipe, just finish off cleaning up around it. And like I talked about on the MPU5, after I wipe this off, could probably throw some gun oil on this anodizing and it would look real nice too. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a tiny bit of dielectric grease, literally just put it on my finger and throw dabs of it. Tiny, tiny dabs, like less than a pea size, on these antenna posts. Great hand lotion. And we're going to install these antennas. And that just really is going to prolong the life of these devices. The reason we're doing this, guys, is we spent our own money on them. Getting them serviced would be very expensive. And so what we want to do is we want to take good care of it, right? We want to treat it with some dignity and respect. These are great pieces of equipment, then they'll take good care of you as long as you take good care of them. Sometimes they'll take good care of you even if you don't take good care of them. But again, we want to get the most life out of them as possible. This is also a great opportunity to show you guys just a quick little power on test that you can instruct some sellers to go through if you're asking them about the functionality. Let's turn these on at the same time, actually. Let's see who boots faster. But anyway, so when these power on, they're gonna display a red LED on the Silvus StreamCaster, they're gonna display a blue LED on the MPU5. That just means they're going through some type of boot cycle going on. Once these finish their boot process, these will change color, and that'll tell you that they've finished their boot process and they're now looking for their neighbor. So as you can see on the MPU5, the light changed from a blue to a amber green looking color. They call that yellow, but it's really hard to tell if it's amber or green. And then on the Silvus side, the LED has gone from a green, it has gone from a solid red to a flashing green, which means it's looking for its nearest neighbor as well. If it found a neighbor, it would turn to a solid green. If this one found a neighbor, I'm pretty sure it would just turn, wouldn't be so amber, it would be a more solid green. So let me check the manual on that. So yes, according to the manual, this would turn a real green if it was connected to a neighbor. So there you are. Now, on that note, we've gone over everything we kind of need to go over on the MPU5. I don't own this, belongs to a buddy. I'm gonna give it back to him. So this is where it's gonna make its exit from this video. And we're gonna spend the rest of this video talking about how I actually configure my own personally owned StreamCasters, all the accessories I got for them, and how I like to set them up. And we're gonna do all of that after a word from this video's sponsor. Hey guys, here in my garage, we actually have my e-bike, which is a totally separate topic, but I was able to go to a class recently and use this e-bike and the Silvuses as part of the class. Now, in order for me to have voice comms with the Silvus, I needed a PTT and I needed a headset for my bike helmet. And both of those items actually came from this video's sponsor, which is Com Gear Supply. Com Gear Supply is an online retailer of a ton of comms products. I couldn't even begin to list all of the items that they actually sell on their website. There's so many of them, but among them was a PTT for the Silvus StreamCaster, which we're gonna talk about that later in this video. But they also sell things that you really can't get anywhere else, like headset kits for a dirt bike helmet. Now, in here I have a couple of speakers and a microphone. It all comes to this little plug here that I'm able to plug into a U94 or their own PTT for having voice comms with the Silvus while on my e-bike. Again, Com Gear Supply is going to be the hookup for all of that. There's going to be a link in the description if you want to support me. If you don't, that's totally fine as well.
But Comm Gear Supply, they hooked us up for this video, and you're gonna see a little bit more of those products here in a second. So let's get back into that. So for the next portion of this video, we're going to go over surviving the worst case scenario, which is that you were only able to source the radio module. Now, some of this information will be relevant if you're on the MPU5 side and you weren't able to get antennas or batteries, because some of the information we cover is going to be cross-compatible with those radios as well. Power. You got to power these, right? All radios take power in some way. In the case of a dismount, you're going to use batteries. Now, these actually use a older style of battery interface called the twist lock battery. And this was kind of pioneered, or at least it was made prolific on the DoD side with the PRIC 148 or the Embedder. You can actually use Embedder batteries, the ones that say Talas, with your Silvus StreamCasters or your MPU5s. Now, the older Embedder batteries are going to be right around the 50 watt-hour mark versus the 70 to 80 watt-hour mark, manufacturer dependent on the newer models, and those are going to be manufactured by Bren-Tronics. Now, they're all going to be cross-compatible. Their chargers are cross-compatible, so you can use the old PRIC 148 desktop charger, and you could even use like the 6-bay Talas chargers. I have one. It's right down here. I'll roll in some B-roll here, but you're able to use those chargers. Now, I will warn you, this is probably the one category where you feel just absolutely swindled. These are very expensive. All the components are very expensive. I think this is like a $300 charger. I think this is like an $800 charger, these flex chargers. This is actually my favorite setup. I was able to get this as a package from one of the eBay purchases that I got. But all of that to say, where do you get all that stuff? Well, if you want to buy new, you're going to go to a website called SupplyNet. SupplyNet has all the stuff you need for a lot of military stuff. If you're even wanting to do some DIY power, you know, you want some unterminated leads on the twist lock side so you can power it with like a vehicle or something like that, they sell the unterminated ends. I'm warning you now, they are expensive, but you can at least get them, right? You can go to their website, give them your credit card information, it ships to your front door. You don't have to know anybody. You don't have to work for the DoD. You can buy those parts directly from SupplyNet. That will be linked in the description. As always with this stuff, with any old military stuff, you can also get stuff on eBay. Now, my friends and I have been sourcing a lot of these older Embedder batteries on eBay. Now, the downside of that, I think some of these actually say Persistent Systems on them as well, which is kind of funny that I use them with Silvus's. Yeah, there you go. Persistent Systems ones right there. So a few things to note. When you buy used batteries, you also buy the used life that came with them. I bought used batteries. Obviously, it was significantly cheaper, but they were just DOA, right? They showed up, tried charging them, tried using them, just didn't work. The other thing with these batteries, if you buy them used, is a lot of times they're missing. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus there. I don't think I will. There it is. They're missing that O-ring in there, and that O-ring is actually necessary in order to have a proper connection to the radio. So what do? You go to Lowe's or anywhere else that sells the Danco O-rings, and you get the number 35 Danco O-ring. That is what I have found to fit perfectly as a substitute on these twist lock batteries. Again, you can just go right to Lowe's, pick those up. Now, as I pointed out, a lot of these are going to look used, right? They might have some weird logos on them. They might say Talas on them or Persistent Systems when you're buying for Silvus, or, you know, reverse that scenario. Well, I don't know if they're available yet, but my friend over at Covert Innovations is actually working on wraps for the twist lock batteries. These are a Cordura wrap, and they have a very thin adhesive on them, so they work with the chargers. I am actually working with him to make sure these fit correctly. I don't know if they're available at the time of this video, but if they're not available now, they'll be available extremely soon. He's doing them for the Talas and then for the Bren-Tronics because there's slightly different fitments between them. Now, let's talk about antennas. If you are needing antennas for your radio because either the ones you purchased didn't come with one, or they're just damaged, or they're not gonna fit your application, I highly recommend Southwest Antennas. Southwest Antennas, they manufacture a ton of different high quality antennas. It's here in the United States. They're great people over there, and you're able to go to their website, give them your card information, and purchase whatever antennas you need. Now, I will caution you, make sure you find out exactly what connector type and what band and what gain and what type of just overall form factor you want. They do make these spring-loaded ones here. These happen to be some Southwest antennas I have here. If you do want to get the gooseneck style, you know, the kind that don't spring back to like a fixed, you know, straight position, and they have a little bit more flexibility, which is actually what I prefer. You can actually, you know, purchase those as well. Again, just make sure you get the right connector and they're for the correct band. If you have dual band radios like these happen to be, make sure you buy the dual band antennas as well. And make sure you buy the correct number of antennas. So every StreamCaster takes 2, every MPU5 takes 3. And the one thing I will caution you on with Southwest antennas is that there is a lead time. You can reach out to them and ask, hey, do you have inventory of this specific SKU of antenna? There's a possibility that they won't, and you'll be waiting for them to fulfill that order with their made to order queue. So that's just something to be aware of. But again, Silvus antennas, they'll be linked in the description as well. And you might be seeing more from them on this channel as well. I've been working with them on some stuff and I'm pretty excited. So we'll get into that later. I shouted them out in the ad for this video, and this is how you know that I actually use the stuff. Their PTT is what I recommend for your tactical headset on the Silvus StreamCaster. They sell them right on their website. They interface directly into the PTT port, and you have PTT comms. You do have to configure that inside the radio itself, which we're not going to cover in this video, but you are able to have voice comms with your tactical headset with the Comm Gear Supply PTT. Just go right on their website. The OpsCore one is a little bit more durable, and it's also dual channel. I have one of those. You saw it earlier in the video. They're very nice. I love OpsCore products. They are also $500 versus the $200 for these PTTs. So if you don't need that extreme OpsCore durability, these are plenty durable. And if you don't use dual channels, again, this is fine. Now, as I've already talked about in a lot of this video, these aren't just designed for voice, they're designed for data. But I haven't shown you any of the interfaces or the peripherals needed to actually use these to transfer data back and forth. Well, we're gonna go over that now. So probably one of my favorite companies out there right now that's doing stuff for both the commercial side and the DoD side is Proto Cable. They make extremely high quality cables for data and other peripherals that go along with military grade radios. He himself is a veteran, and he knows what he's talking about with this stuff. So these peripherals are going to allow me to interface with an EUD or anything with a Ethernet connector. For an EUD, you're going to want to use their, surprise, surprise, EUD cable. One of the things I like about his EUD cable is that they're a right angle, so it actually protects the EUD's port from damaged and from snagged. And that goes into the aux port on the StreamCaster, and then it's got a USB-C connector. That's what would actually go into my EUD. Then what about the Ethernet side of things? Well, the Ethernet side of things is how we're going to connect this to things like computers if we want to program them on a web application, or if we want to push any type of internet across these radios, or maybe not even just internet, but any type of LAN connections. What I can do is I can take this primary cable. Let's say, for example, I wanted to connect the internet to this EUD here, and I didn't have cellular. What I could do is I could come to my network stack here. I could plug in one of Mike's primary cables into one of the other Silvuses I have. Just let it boot up. And then what would happen is these two would establish a connection, and then this would pass that data seamlessly across these devices. And it doesn't just have to be a server rack like this. I could plug this into a Starlink, and then the Starlink would serve the internet to all the connected devices as well. I could take this USB-C connection and plug it right into my MacBook, and then I would be connected to the same network that the Starlink that is plugged into this Silvus can do as well. Now, we'll probably show you guys some setups in some future videos, but I just wanted to give you guys kind of the complete overview on all the different ways that, or at least some of the ways out there that you can actually interface with data and start using these to push data across different peripherals using commercially available components. And that's the part I wanted to emphasize to you guys. All the stuff I showed you in this portion of the video, you can just go to their website and you can buy the stuff from them. You don't have to email them in for a quote or ask for a specific item. Now, they will help you out if you send them a customer service email. They're great people. I don't know about SupplyNet. I've never dealt with their customer service, but everybody else that I mentioned has great customer service, great people. They knew I was putting this video together, and I've been a customer of theirs for a long time before this video was ever getting made, and I can't say enough good things about them. So I've kind of struggled to figure out how to end this video, especially because I know there's probably gonna be a part 2, maybe a part 3. I don't want to get too deep into loadouts because that's gonna be a separate video. And it's probably fairly obvious I've struggled to figure out how I want to end this video because you've seen the progression of the remodel of this portion of my office. Yeah. I think we can cap this video by showing some of the functionality of these products actually in use, because I don't think I've done that up to this point yet. And then instead of showing you my loadouts, because I have a few of them when I use my Silvus StreamCasters, and that's gonna be a separate video, what I think I'm actually gonna do is also build out a generic dismount kit setup using all commercially available parts except for the Silvus StreamCasters that I sourced via surplus. Some of the principles from the MPU5 route, if you followed the advice I gave you, would work for that as well. But here we have just set up right now. This is my WinTAC setup. This is my TAC server with a Silvus 4400 up there. And here is a Silvus StreamCaster. It's running, as you can see. Maybe you can see it's got a green light on. I have one of my EUDs. This one is my main EUD on here. And this thing doesn't have an internet connection. Well, it does. It doesn't have our conventional internet connection. It's on airplane mode, so there's no Wi-Fi, there's no cellular. Make sure I'm not lying to you, that is correct. All it really is it's showing an Ethernet connection, right? It detects this as being an Ethernet connection as if I was using like an Ethernet adapter and plugging into this switch right here, right? So it's just bridging the gap. There it is. You can see the COT cursor on target populating right here, live on the map. And for the dismount kit, I think we're gonna go ahead and use this plate carrier. This is a Beartooth Systems LV119. I generally really like Beartooth Systems. Adam loves to give me shit because he's an MPU5 guy. I'm a Silvus StreamCaster guy, but nevertheless, they make a lot of really great kit. You'll see a lot of their kit throughout a lot of my media. I'm gonna throw this on here. Right, so I got the 119 thrown on here real quick, and it looks probably like, you know, a fairly generic plate carrier many of you guys may own. There might be tiny kit differences. The only specialty piece of gear that I have on here is their MPRC, their multi-platform radio chassis, and that's what's gonna house the StreamCaster that I put on this kit. For my end user device, I did actually get 6 of these exact identical setups. This is a Samsung X-Cover Pro inside of this is just a knockoff S&S Precision nav board flip light. I think they're like 80 bucks if you buy the, you know, the real version. I was not gonna buy 6 real versions. I just bought a knockoff. So I'm just gonna throw this on here. You're gonna see me kind of fumble through this. You know, if you guys have ever done anything with Molly, it's best to do it when it's not on you, but want it in the camera frame. All right, so I got my EUD on here, and then I'm gonna take one of my little dismount kits. I have it in a Magpul DACA pouch. Just get all the parts pulled out here. Now again, everything in here, except for one, I'll show it to you. Everything in here are all components you can purchase directly from a website right now. This is a proto cable, EUD cable, and then my comm gear supply PTT. So I'm gonna move this actually. What I actually really like about the comm gear supply ones, just from a kit agility standpoint, especially for a dismount kit like this, is it has a clip. It's super low profile, and I can actually rotate it 360 degrees. So if Molly routes, you know, horizontally, I can do that. Or in the case of the 119, if my little strap is, you know, meant to be oriented vertically, I can do it that way. Got my StreamCaster, battery for it, a couple of antennas. The only thing in here that isn't available over the counter is this Wi-Fi GPS dongle. I got these were part of that, you know, somebody had been selling some StreamCasters and they had some ancillary equipment. So this was kind of a specialty thing, but I did get enough for all my dismount kits, so that's why it's in there. And then this one happened to come with antennas, but like I said, Southwest antennas, those would work just as well. I'll leave the cover on the primary port because we're not doing anything with the primary port in this configuration. Cool. So I got this all installed here. You guys are seeing this happen in real time. So what I'm gonna do is, now that it's booting up, throw it in my MPRC. Now, I generally do prefer my radios right here on the front of my kit. I don't really have an issue with them getting in the way of me. I have seen guys put them on the back. No, that's what some guys prefer. I just prefer them right up front. Cool, and then I do have some excess here with the PTT. And what I have found is that, especially because it's a coily cable, this is great for a dismount kit because, again, it gives me a ton of agility as far as where I'm positioning this. If my guy I'm loading this to has a split rig or plate carrier, he's wearing a chest rig over a plate carrier, this just gives me a ton of options in terms of where I can put the radio and them still being able to use their tactical headset. And so a lot of guys don't like the coily cable. I actually like it for the dismount kit. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that excess, because I have pretty much all of it right now. I just tuck it behind my cummerbund,
Some guys complain about the battery kind of poking into their side, and so I found you can actually cushion it when you use that coily cable just tucked in behind it. But anyway, I am booted up here, which means it's connected to this StreamCaster and this StreamCaster. Now what I'm gonna go ahead and do is fire up ATAC, and we should see another cursor on target icon populate right here as soon as this finished booting up. And again, you guys are seeing this real time, so if I have something I need to troubleshoot, you'll get to see it. But it looks like everything should happen correctly. So just waiting for my GPS fix, which might take a second. This is a little bit of an older phone. Oh no, that happened fairly quickly actually, which is nice. All right, so it just populated right there. It's gonna take a second to get a perfectly correct fix on where I'm located, but my cursor on target is populated in here. Now, all of this functionality you've probably seen done with other ATAC adjacent products before. This is something that plenty of other devices can do. This is certainly an easy lift for this technology. I want to show you guys something that you can't do with any of the other devices outside of MANET radios. I'm going to show you guys streaming full motion video, and that means you're going to see everything I'm looking at right now. I'm going to use the onboard camera of this EUD to actually stream what it sees to this other device. And the way that path works out is this is going to transmit to this Silvus 4400, and it's going to go into this switch, and then it'll be processed by the laptop that this thing is displaying. So pretty easy here. It's going to hop into that plugin and go ahead and start broadcasting. And funny enough, you can actually see the vector I'm looking at on the camera with the screen here. And we'll go ahead and pull that up. I'll pop that out here. And there you have it. We see it is streaming full motion video. Now this is using UDP right now, so I'm not gonna get a ton of error correction, and I haven't played with the settings to actually optimize this for any type of high quality video playback. But just so that way you guys can see, I mean, it's actually happening pretty smooth. I'm just seeing it in the viewfinder here. That's actually pretty smooth, so I'm pretty impressed with that. This is something that you only get that functionality with MANET radios, something capable of that high data throughput. And we really can only do it in a dismounted configuration like this versus doing it with something like the Ubiquiti nano beams. So I hope this put a lot of stuff into perspective for you guys. If you want to see more content like this, if you're really curious about specific details, leave a comment. Like I said, this is at minimum gonna get another video where I show not only a few of my loadouts, but maybe some of my friends. If you guys wanna see anything, go ahead and drop them. This is my first video on this channel, so please like and subscribe if this is content you're interested in. If not, whatever, it is what it is. But I'm hopeful that it's informative and it gives you guys some other stuff to consider and look at. If you want to see any other type of use cases, like maybe integrating with drones, that's something we can do as well. I did just do a video over on the Zenith Firearms channel where I talked about my drone loadout. But if you want to see more of like the data integration side of things, either leave a comment here or on that video and we'll see what we can do about that. But anyway, I hope that was informative. Thank you guys so much and have a good day.